This is a Mother Angelica news update from CNA.
EWTN's foundress, Mother Angelica, leaves behind a legacy few would have predicted for a girl from a troubled family in Ohio. Mother was born Rita Rizzo in 1923. At the age of 6, her parents divorced. Mother later recalled the divorce as the root of many of her troubles. After the divorce, she and her mother adopted a life of poverty. Mother Angelica suffered from severe stomach pain as a teenager, but her stomach pain was healed after she prayed a novena to Saint Therese of Lisieux. Mother later said the miraculous healing planted the seed of her vocation. She said it was the first moment she realized God's immense love for her, and she wanted to respond by fully giving herself to Christ. Mother Angelica entered the Poor Clares of Perpetual Adoration in 1944 at the age of 21. This has been an EWTN CNA Newslink. I'm Catherine Vike.
Welcome back to EWTN's continuing coverage of the life and legacy of our beloved foundress, Mother Angelica. I'm Jack Williams. John Martignoni is alongside here in our normal open line Monday time slot. Elena Rodriguez is producing for us, and Matt Kubinski will screen your phone calls. And we would love to hear your reflections on the life and legacy of Mother Angelica. How did Mother Angelica touch your life? What impact did she have on your day-to-day existence or your spirituality? We would love to hear from you. The phone numbers are 1-800-585-9396. That's toll-free anywhere in North America. 1-800-585-9396. If you're outside the United States and Canada, your number is 1-205-271-2985. And we will put you straight to the front of the line at 1-205-271-2985, or you can send us an email, openline@EWTN.com. As I mentioned, John Martignoni is alongside. Mr. Martignoni, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, sir. It's a pleasure to be back in the studio with you.
And I'm sure it come as it did to me. You and I are similar type folk, and I'm sure that, as with me, it came as no surprise to you that our Lord would call Mother Angelica home on Easter Sunday.
No, that kind of reminds me of, I think it was, George Washington and, was it Thomas Jefferson? No, not George. It was Thomas Jefferson and maybe John Adams, who, second and third or second and fourth presidents, they both died on the same day on July 4th. Which would be appropriate for what they were involved in. And so with Mother Angelica, Easter, I can't think of a more appropriate day for, her to hopefully go to her heavenly reward.
And we speculated a little bit this morning that she had a tremendous, as you know, devotion to the child Jesus. The shrine is dedicated to Divino Niño. And she had the feeding tube installed back in November and kind of took a little turn for the worse there in December. And we were speculating that perhaps around the feast of Divino Niño, she may achieve her heavenly reward. But she and our dear Lord had other plans, and it was certainly this is probably, and I don't know how you feel, this is probably the most edifying passing of anybody that I've ever experienced in my life.
I know. Well, one thing, everyone knows she's suffered tremendously the last 15 years or so.
The last 90 years to a certain extent.
But in particular, in the last 15 years, but throughout her whole life, really. I remember being up here when my wife used to be the floor director for one of her TV shows, and she had the braces, the back brace, the leg braces, although she was freed from those miraculously. So she did suffer her whole life physically, emotionally, etc., with her background with growing up, the family situation she grew up in. But like you said, it's just I can't think of a more edifying passing of a person that you feel there's the tears are really tears of joy for most people that she's going to be missed, but she's going to be able to do now more in heaven, I think, than even what she did on earth.
1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. We would love to hear your reflections on the passing of Mother Angelica, and really more importantly, the life and legacy of Mother Angelica. You mentioned that your lovely wife, Janelle, was instrumental in helping Mother get that show off the ground back in the day, and just talk a little bit about the impact that Mother and her obedience has had on you and your family.
Well, first, to relate my wife's experience, she started working here, I guess, in 93, maybe not too long after she and I met, in a prayer group, which was filled with mostly EWTN employees, so indirectly there was Mother's influence there. But I remember I would come up here, and this was before we had any children. We just got married in January of 95, and she was doing the floor directing for one of the shows, live shows, and her Mother's security guard, I think his name was Tom, he would ask me, because I was always there, and as he got to know me, he said, "Can you help me with security?" Because after each show, it was like a mob scene, people trying to come up to her, get pictures, autographs, and the little platform that her chair was on only would hold so much weight, and so we would have to say, first, stay off the platform, please, don't get on the platform. Mother will get, and she would take her time with every single person, give them autographs, talk to them, take pictures, but so that was one part of it. Then with me in particular, with what I'm doing, I started off in apologetics. I had a little 1 hour a week show on the largest evangelical radio station in the state of Alabama, doing Catholic apologetics. The program was called the Bible Christian Hour. And from that, people locally heard, well, there's this Catholic guy on Protestant radio, Defend the Faith. And I gave a series of talks, my first public talks at a Catholic parish at Our Lady of Sorrows, 4 Wednesday nights in a row. And I had asked Tom Price, because I knew him, and I figured he might have some recording equipment, could you record these for me in case somebody might want a copy? And he came, he recorded them, and he said, as he was editing them after the talks a few weeks later, he said, "Do you mind if we play these on EWTN radio?" I said no, and I thought EWTN radio meant shortwave. That went I didn't know they had AM and FM affiliates, which this was
not many then.
99. It was
yeah.
like 6, 8
right.
affiliates, something like that. And I said, sure, go ahead. And I forgot all about it. And a few months later, he aired them. I'll never forget. It was January of 2000. I come home. He aired them on the top of the week program, Sunday morning. And I get home from Mass that one Sunday when he aired the first talk, and there were 17, 18, messages on my answering machine. I was like, what is it? And I want to get a copy of that talk. I was like, what are they talking about? What talk? I mean, it had just completely been removed. And again, I thought anybody hearing it would be, Japan, Africa, wherever the shortwave went. And then I realized, I said, oh, that's the talk. And that's how the tape ministry, as the Protestants would say, was born, and sent out a couple thousand tapes. It was cassette tapes at the time that year, 3,000, and then it aired on some of the affiliates picked up the talks and aired them, and went from 3,000 one year to 15,000, 20,000, 50,000. And the Bible Christian Society. And then people would call and say, can you come talk to our parish after they'd gotten it? So I would not be here doing what I am doing, would not be working as the director of evangelization for the diocese, wouldn't really have the Bible Christian Society were it not for all of the things that Mother Angelica did.
Let's go to the phones. Madeline is listening in Moses Lake, Washington. Madeline, thanks for holding on. What's your reflection of Mother Angelica?
Okay. Yes.
Go right ahead.
Okay. I was just telling the other man that I was so thankful that you aired Mother Angelica on the air, on TV and on the radio, because this day I was really having some problems, family, financial and everything. So I was listening to Mother Angelica, and she was giving advice to other person on the phone, similar to my problems. So when she was giving the answer to them, I was I thought, well, thank you, Lord, for letting me hear Mother Angelica on the TV. So I followed her advice, what she had given the other person. Things went well, and I felt so good emotionally. You know, just I learned to live the life she said to live. So, and I thank God. I thank you people for having EWTN. And I'm sorry about my voice, but I have laryngitis.
It's all right.
And so I thank you for all the good you do on TV and on radio. My kids now have the TV on, and then they have the radio on 88.7, and they listen to you all. And I'm so thankful for that. And thank you, and may the Lord bless you always.
And may the Lord bless you as well, Madeline. Thanks so much for that phone call. And, John, we hear this as we travel around all the time, and we experience it ourselves. You watch some of these old episodes of Mother Angelica's live TV show, and not only are the messages timeless, but, boy, there are times you think she's talking right to you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, something, should be a show from 1995 we were watching last night, and it had, when it came up, it had my wife's name at the as the floor director, but she was talking, it's like, I mean, this is current, it's now. The teachings of the church and advice using the teachings of the church, they do not go out of style, because the one thing you realize is that even though technology may be different and change, man does not change. And we have the same problems today that we had 20 years ago, that they had 100 years ago, 500 years ago. You read the Confessions of St. Augustine, you read the Imitation of Christ, and you realize they have the same problems we have, the same sins, the same desires, the same inordinate desires. And her advice is as current today as it was when she was giving it on TV back in the 80s and 90s.
Next up is Philip in Cedar, Michigan. He's listening on Baraga Broadcasting to EWTN. Philip, thanks for holding. What's your reflection of Mother Angelica today?
Oh, like as you said earlier, it's a beautiful day, sad but joyful. And what she has done to my life personally, I thought would be noteworthy for your program. Is about the time she launched this great ship, EWTN 81, was the time that I decided to take the wide road and start walking away from the sacraments, doing my own thing. I'm 54. I graduated in 1980. So, my parents, and this is, one of the things she always tells us is that we're all family. She would always end her sequences with that. I love my family, your family. And she spoke directly to the heart. So as my mom and dad must have been suffering as watching me walk away from the sacraments and the faith, here EWTN comes in. And I know it played such a great part of hope in my mom and dad's life for me. And so it's interesting to see then in the course of the years, their countless rosaries, their hours of adoration, all paid off. And I have a beautiful conversion in the year 2000, the Jubilee year. My mom and dad are deceased now. Dad in 2013 and mom last November 9th. But here they got to witness the new creation. And I thank God for that. I got to be that Philip that they knew as the young boy, prior to me going down my own road. And Mother Angelica played such a key role in this. And I'll never forget whenever I visited them, in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, there's EWTN, there's Mother Angelica, there's the rosary sitting out, the prayer cards, the miraculous medals, and just as Mother Angelica said it so beautifully, we are destined for sainthood. We just have to work at it. The greatest sinners can become great saints with the help of people like Mother Angelica and parents that just don't give up.
Philip, that's a beautiful story. Thanks so much for calling in and sharing that with us, and God bless you there in the great state of Michigan. And how many countless families do you think maybe have been reunited by the obedience of what Mother Angelica has accomplished here?
Well, there's a passage that I really love in James chapter 5, verse 19 and 20. It says, whoever brings a sinner back to the truth saves his soul from death. And it's not talking about the sinner's soul, it's talking about the person who brings the sinner back and covers a multitude of sins. And I just think there are so many people who've been brought back to the truth because of the work of this woman, allowing God to work through her in such an incredible way that the ripple effect, as I call it, is going to be felt for many, many, many years to come.
1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. We're celebrating the life and legacy of Mother Angelica and listening mostly to you, our beloved listeners, that she loves so much and the people for which she did everything that she did in establishing the network. And one of those people is Karen in Bloomfield, Colorado. She's listening to EWTN Radio on Denver Catholic Broadcasting. Karen, what's your reflection of Mother Angelica today?
Well, I just wanted to say that I feel like I've lost my best friend. I have followed her ever since I was 20 years old. I've got all her books, all her pamphlets. In the meantime, I had 6 kids. And she's just been a friend and a mentor, and I'm really sad she's gone. But I've got all her writings, and I've got all her thoughts, and I feel like she's going to help us more now that she's in heaven. And I just am thankful to God for her.
Well, thank you for that reflection. And, we've speculated of late, we talk about where the network has gone since she had the last stroke on Christmas Eve of 2001, I believe. And if you look at the meteoric rise of the network, the number of cable systems that it's on, the number of homes that it reaches, the number of radio stations, AM and FM, that are now, and this is when she went behind the veil, so to speak,
right,
into her cell and spent most of her time praying. Now, if she finds herself before the throne of God, where might the network go? Yeah,
absolutely. It's endless possibilities. And like I said, she can do more now, as Karen was saying, in heaven than she can here on earth. And you look at what she did on earth, you think, wow, that we got a ride. There's a good ride coming here.
Amen.
God bless you, Karen. Thanks so much for the phone call. 1-800-585-9396. Our next stop is Wenatchee, Washington. Julie is listening to EWTN in Wenatchee. Julie, what's your reflections of Mother Angelica today?
Oh, I am so grateful to Mother Angelica. I came into the church Saturday night at Easter Vigil.
Well, welcome home.
Thank you. And as I was walking out the door with my husband, who's a returned Catholic, and my son, who also came into the church Saturday night, I had a little paper picture of Mother on my refrigerator, which I had received in a mailing from EWTN. And I thought, oh, I want to take Mother to Easter Vigil. So I tucked her into my pocket, and I had her under my white robe during Easter Vigil, and I was just so happy to have Mother there with me. And I was a very protesting Protestant before I started listening to EWTN radio, and it was listening to the Rosary prayed that softened my heart. So then when I heard people like Mr. Martignoni and Dr. David Anders explaining all the things about the Catholic Church, which I had heard explained before, and said, oh, no, that's not right, that's wrong. Once I started listening to the Rosary and started praying the Rosary, because Mother has it on radio, then my heart was opened, and I listened, and now I'm a Catholic.
That's awesome, Julie. Let me ask you, how long ago did this journey start for you?
It started on December 31st of 2014. So
wow.
It's just been a little over a year.
Okay. And like you said, hearing the Rosary, and that's what I tell people a lot of times, is that the truth is going to get you as long as you're open to it. But you're relating, you first had to have your heart softened and your mind opened up by the grace of hearing the Rosary over and over again before you would be open to hearing the truth and accepting the truth, right?
Exactly. That's exactly how it worked.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate your story very much, Julia, and thank you for calling in and sharing that.
Thank you,
You're
Julie.
welcome. Thank
God
you.
bless you. Have a tremendous Easter season there in Wenatchee, Washington. That opens up a line for you at 1-800-585-9396. That's toll-free anywhere in North America. And if you've got something that you'd like to share with us about Mother Angelica, and maybe you don't live in North America, we've got a number for you. The number's 1-205-271-2985. That's 1-205-271-2985. I'm Jack Williams, John Martignoni, alongside our host of EWTN's Open Line Monday, and we're reflecting on the life and legacy of our beloved foundress, Mother Angelica. Next up is Henry in Chicago, Illinois. He's listening to EWTN on our app. Henry, you're on the air.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Henry. Go ahead.
Well, there's so much to say. Where do I start? Mother Angelica to me is EWTN. I had been aware of EWTN quite a while ago. I'm a lifelong Catholic, but I hadn't really started watching any of the programming until 2007 or so. I was going through a period in my life when a couple of my adult children were having some really difficult times in their life, and this EWTN just happened to be there when I was home recovering from back surgery, and I got hooked on watching Mother Angelica, replays of her talks, and of course her sense of humor and her orthodoxy, the straight truth, no varnish, and her great sense of humor was very appealing. And I'm just so grateful that she's introduced me to so many what I consider friends that I listen to. Your programming, Father Mitch, David Anders, Marcus Grote, I love that program alone. I've learned so much from people that are reverts from Journey Home program, and people coming into the faith, converts. I just learned so much from it, and it's just given me such a thirst to know more and to grow more. And whenever I think of Mother Angelica, I think of anytime I think of EWTN, I think of her, because she started something that she was compelled to do, and she allowed herself her yes to be such a comprehensive reach, from people coming stronger in their faith in different ways, whether it was spirituality or whether it was through news being presented with a Catholic worldview. You could always be trusted that it was going to be in accordance with the magisterium. There were so many things about history, or whether it was an intellectual pursuit of understanding their faith. There's just so many ways that I've benefited from. I'm so grateful for her, and I'm happy for her now. That she's home. She's going home.
Well, thanks so much, Henry. We appreciate those sentiments, and we appreciate the phone call. And, Mother was, she really exemplified what true love is, and that's putting the best interest of the beloved at heart. And she really put our best interests ahead of her own with almost everything she did to establish the network.
Oh, absolutely. And just the thing, all the stories I've heard about her, what just comes through over and over and over again, is just the complete trust in God that she had from the first satellite dish, the check arriving, as the people were about to drive off because she didn't have money to pay, and here comes a check for what, 100,000, 80,000, whatever it was. That here's your money, and that trust in God came through on the TV, and then eventually when they started airing on radio, and that's, I think, what drew people to her so much is you could see and hear God working in her, and you're like, man, I want to trust God like this woman trusts God, and whether miracles are happening or not in my life, I want to trust God like she does, and it just drew you to her, drew so many people from all walks of life to this woman. It was just an amazing, amazing phenomenon.
Continuing to celebrate the life and legacy of Mother Angelica here on EWTN Radio. If you want a little more of what we're talking about or a little more Mother Angelica, EWTN.com. The entire site has been dedicated to Mother Angelica in the wake of her passing, and it is spectacular. Hats off to Jeff Hahn and our whole online services team. And in conjunction with our creative services people, they have done a wonderful tribute to Mother with the entire web presence that EWTN has on the web at EWTN.com. 1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. We'll try to get to as many of you as we can during this hour, so if you get a busy signal, keep on trying. Next up is Terry in Peoria, Illinois, listening to EWTN in Peoria. Terry, talk about what Mother Angelica means to you.
Well, I have a little laryngitis, so I apologize for that.
That's okay.
But my husband and I were at EWTN and saw Mother with her braces on and with great pain. And the following year, we were down there 1 week after her cure, and she didn't need the braces anymore. And Mother was dancing around with great happiness. And this caused my husband to begin his journey into the church. And then she had her stroke where she couldn't speak anymore. And I told Ron that this was Jesus' way of saying, thank you for your help, Mother, but I needed people to know that this is my station, and it will go on whether you are speaking or not, because I need you to pray for the station more now. And so that was my takeaway on Mother Angelica, and I loved her so dearly.
Well, thank you, Terry, for those beautiful thoughts. 1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. Next up is Ken. He's in the great state of Kansas listening to EWTN. Ken, what are your thoughts about Mother Angelica this afternoon?
Yes, I was listening to John for a couple of years, and I wanted to go ahead and meet him. So they were having the family celebrations down there. So I did a little pilgrimage with a friend of mine and got down there, and John wasn't speaking. So for some reason that happened. So we went up to the monastery up north. We were in the commons area there in the courtyard, and we heard this screaming going on, and we looked over there, and there's a crowd by the door, one-way door, and they said, if you want to see Mother, you got to get in here now, She wants to see everybody. So about 8 people, maybe a dozen people around there, and they were walking in one at a time, and they were coming out crying and just overwhelmed. Finally, my friend Karen walked in there, and she came out, met Mother just through the grail, just touched her hand, looked her in the eyes, and came out. And Karen just stood there and cried for about 5 minutes.
Wow.
We've heard this story more than once.
Yeah. That's well, like I said, the people, even when she was still on TV and doing her program, after the shows, people would just, it's Mother Angelica, and they were drawn to, I said, the love of God that this woman exhibited, to her sanctity and her honesty, her sense of humor, and she just she touched so many lives, and it's just and I think she's going to continue going on, touching even more lives.
There's no question. We're celebrating the life and legacy of Mother Angelica here on the day after her passing on this Easter Sunday, 2013. If you've got a reflection or a memory, or if you'd like to talk about what Mother Angelica has meant in your life, we'd love to hear from you at 1-800-585-9396, toll-free anywhere in North America, 1-800-585-9396. Next up is Jim in La Crosse, Wisconsin. He's listening on EWTN.com. Jim, you're on the air. Thanks for holding.
My recollection of Mother Angelica goes back 35 years. My wife and I had just been married in the spring of 1981, and I happen to be totally blind, for which I ask no pity whatsoever. I've spent some time in broadcasting, and I've been on the engineering side of things, as well as using my big mouth. Anyway, my wife happened upon an article that said that this nun in Alabama had put on this television station on satellite. Now, satellite was a very new thing back then. So, and having been in broadcasting and having a degree in the stuff, and having been taught by nuns for 8 years in grade school, I'm not knocking the nuns, but my first thought was, what does this nun know about hooking everything together and making it work? And we didn't have cable at the time, so I didn't get to hear her until, it had to be years later, and I got a hold of a shortwave radio because I'm a radio buff. And I got a hold of a shortwave radio, and I'm tuning around, and the first thing I hear when I find EWTN is she's on a rant of some sort, and the first thing that comes out is, "Listen to your mother." And I sat there like, oh my gosh, she's mad. And she wasn't, but that was just her way sometimes. And I have, since of course we've gotten cable, and I've been following the TV station, the network as it has grown, and the radio outreach, of course, as it has grown, and I'm no longer able to work, and sometimes I'm not able to get out as much because I have cerebral palsy in both legs. So it's been a actual godsend to me, given what she started with, and I've read the book that Raymond Arroyo wrote, and given what she started with, and given what it now is, she will be missed, and that's all I'm going to say.
Well, Jim, thanks for those beautiful sentiments. We appreciate that phone call.
Thanks.
1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. Trying to get as many reflections from you, our listeners, as we can about Mother Angelica as we reflect on her life and legacy here on this day following Easter Sunday, Easter Monday 2016. We'll head now to Columbia City, Indiana. Anita is listening to EWTN on Redeemer Radio. Anita, what are your reflections on Mother Angelica today?
Unfortunately, I never had the pleasure of meeting this wonderful woman, but I've watched many of her shows and reruns and things. But I just appreciated her sense of humor. She always made her point, in a way that people could grasp and not be afraid of nuns. I think for so long we were afraid of the nuns and their habits and everything about them. We forgot they were human and they were people. And she brought that back to the church, and I really wanted to appreciate and thank her for that. She reminds me so much of a great aunt that I had that had that same sense of humor, and she was also a nun. And so Mother Angelica and her are going to have a blast in heaven, I have a feeling, because their sense of humor and the way they got across their points were wonderful, and I just really want to appreciate and thank her for that.
Well, thanks, Anita, for taking the time to give a phone call to us here today. I remember exactly to the point you're talking about. I remember a show. This was shortly after the sisters had moved to Hanceville, and they were living at the shrine, but the shrine was still undergoing some detail work on the grounds and what have you around. And she was on the set of the live show, and she was talking about some sort of deep theological topic, and she stopped in the middle of a sentence. And she sat up straight in her chair, and she looked at the camera, and she said, "Well, I found out what a tube top was today." And she had said that there had been some landscapers that were hired that were on the grounds, and she asked one of the sisters and what that was, and the sister said, "Well, Mother, that's a tube top." And Mother's response, "Well, doesn't she know this is a monastery?"
Yeah.
So, but her sense of humor was always in full force. God bless you, Anita. Thanks so much for that phone call. We'll head to Jackson, Nebraska, where Megan is listening to EWTN. Megan, what are your thoughts about Mother Angelica today?
Yeah, I just wanted to share that about 6 years ago, I was in my Catholic faith of just pretty much attending church on Sundays, and that was about it. And I had made a bargain with God that the new Catholic radio station that was in our area, I would listen to if he would just help me in this problem. And so, of course, I started listening. And the only the only thing that I recognized down there was Mother Angelica, because my grandma had watched her on EWTN faithfully for many, many years.
Those grandmas will get you every time.
She did, and I was immediately drawn to Mother Angelica. She related to me to where I was in my faith. I was very new. I didn't read the Bible. I didn't listen to CDs or read any other books, and the message of God loves you and what are you doing and this is what you need to do. And ever since then, I have listened to the Catholic radio station, and it's because of her, because she got me hooked, and she started me growing my faith and becoming a better Christian. And it's the only thing that plays on my radio in my car for the last 6 years, and it's because of her. And it's changed who I am and my family. And all I can say is God bless her, because she sure changed me.
Well, we will second that notion. Thanks for the phone call, Megan. And how many people listen to John Martignoni every week because of what Mother Angelica did?
Well, and that's what I said at the top of the show. The Bible Christian, she had EWTN. Mother had this direct effect through EWTN television and radio with people hearing the truth from her and all the guests on. But then all of those guests are now known by millions of people all over the world because they were able to be on EWTN. I mean, Jeff Cavins, me, Tim Staples, Scott Hahn, although he had his own thing going, but it was made even bigger by EWTN. All the people that the Teresa Tamios of the world, all of these folks, they're into so many more people's homes and cars and so forth because of Mother Angelica and the impact she's had on the Catholic faith and Catholic communications.
And many of them, like you, are doing what they do largely because of Mother Angelica.
Absolutely.
We'll head to Columbus, Ohio now. Jordan is listening to EWTN on St. Gabriel Radio. Jordan, what are your thoughts about Mother Angelica today?
Oh, I have a boatload of them, but but I came into the church 2 years ago, and my day, I'm a college student, and I commute, so around 10 o'clock I'd get in my car, and Mother would be playing on radio, like her talk show, and she just had a way of connecting with people. Like, sometimes you get people who talk about faith, and they get so mad, and she never did. She was always so funny and very personal, to the point where anyone who wanted to know why I believe what I do, I'm like, just Google Mother Angelica, click a video of a nun, and listen. And it was, and EWTN brought Mass to my grandpa, who was homebound for a while, and it brought a lot of really good things to my life. My grandma visited the monastery after my grandpa passed away. Like, there's just so much good that came out of what she did. And she's so personal too. She's dealt with a lot of tough stuff, and she was still so joyful all the way to the end. And it was such a good example.
So, Jordan, how old were you when you started listening to Mother Angelica?
I was 18, 19.
Okay. And see, that's, I used to hear people say, oh, she appeals to all these old folks who are pre-Vatican II and all this. No, it's across the board, male, female, rich, poor, young, old, everybody. If you just listen to her with an open mind, an open heart, she is going to touch you in some way, shape, or form. So.
Well, and she just reminded me so much of my own grandma too. So it was like a match made in heaven, literally.
Well, thanks, Jordan. We appreciate the phone call. 1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. If you get a busy signal, keep trying. We'll try to get to as many of you as we can as we are celebrating the life and legacy of Mother Angelica. Next up is Maida in Amarillo, Texas. She's listening to EWTN on St. Valentine's Radio. Thanks, Maida, for holding on. What do you have to say about Mother Angelica this afternoon?
Oh, hi. I'm a cradle Catholic, and I have been listening to or watching EWTN almost since it started. I've been watching it faithfully over 25 years. I know that. And like one of the ladies just finished talking about her grandfather or grandmother, my dad watched it when he was not able to get out of bed, and he did that. We had it on for him every day for 2 years. And but I continued it myself because absolutely I love the programming, I love the prayers, It has made me closer to my church, to my Lord, and I am just in awe of Mother Angelica. God had a special place for her on this earth, and He's got a special place for her in heaven, because she has drawn so many people to the Lord. I know, and I've gotten 2 granddaughters that I have been working with, trying to get them to finish their sacraments, and one received them last year, and the older one, she's 21, received hers Saturday. And so that is just, I have to work on some more grandkids. and I just absolutely love Mother Angelica, and I love the programming. I keep it on all the time. I wake up in the morning with the Mass, or if I wake up earlier with the prayers, with the rosary, and she did the chaplet of St. Michael. I love it. And then I go to sleep with the Mass again. So I really, truly enjoyed the EWTN, and I thank Mother Angelica for it.
Well, thank you, Mike. Appreciate the phone call.
Yeah, it's just, I know so many people who say they get up in the morning, they turn on the TV, EWTN, or they get into their car. The only radio station they've had, as one of our callers said earlier, that they listen to is the EWTN radio in their area. And TV, the only channel they have it on, EWTN, all day. It's like EWTN's a constant companion, and particularly they love hearing the tape shows of Mother, and her live shows that she did, and constant companion, friend, grandmother. It's just the response to this one woman's life, all the people that she touched in just a relatively few short years, 35 years I guess that EWTN on the air. It is just phenomenal, and this outpouring I think is going to go on for a long, long time, and her effect that she's had on the faith, particularly here in this country, but all over the world, is going to last for a long, long time.
And Mother Angelica had a way of being bold and brash, and oftentimes you don't think of humility when you think of those sorts of traits, but she was a very humble woman.
She was.
And she was very happy for anyone to get closer to her spouse by whatever means necessary. If it was her, fine. If it was someone else, fine. And she has created instruments in other people over the years. And I think Pat in Caldwell, Idaho, has a story about one of Mother Angelica's instruments playing a pivotal role in the life of his family. He's listening on Salt and Light Radio in Caldwell, Idaho. Pat, you're on the air.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Terrific, thank you.
It's a sad but glorious day.
Exactly.
I'm a recent revert, born Catholic, raised not like a chicken, but in the Catholic family. But I have a grandmother who's Italian, and my first introduction to Mother Angelica actually came from Deacon Harold Burke Seaver's story of his father's conversion. He talked about how his father was watching TV and saw this Mother Angelica, and he couldn't stop watching it. And I'm going, who's this Mother Angelica? Where did she come from, and why is she having influence? And so I happened to hear that she was on EWTN, and I'm watching. I turn it on, and I wanted to see who this woman was, and it looked like my grandmother, which was like, okay, I've got to listen because she's Italian, looking like my grandmother, and grandmothers are to be respected, and my grandmother's very direct. And so is she. So is Mother Angelica. And I listened to her, and she's talking about cloning and baby parts and stuff like that. And I'm going, wow, this is pretty current event. And I didn't realize the original air date was, almost 15 years earlier. And I'm going, wow, this is pretty current information. But she was talking about it back then. And I thought, how insightful is that? And I just couldn't stop watching her. And then I heard some of her witticisms on the radio, and I started listening to you guys, and it just cracked me up. I thought, wow, I thought Catholicism was very serious. It was all, go to hell if you don't do this or that. And I didn't realize how much fun she could have with your faith. And she was such a joy to watch and listen to. And she just had such a sense of humor. And yet there was always truth behind it. You know, it always brought you to realize that that everything she was talking about was truth and faithful, and yet you can still enjoy life. And that's just wow, it hit me, and I can't stop watching her.
Well, Pat, thanks so much for those reflections. Boy, we hear. You know, I wonder sometimes if all of us, when we look at Mother Angelica, if we all see something a little bit different, because she seems to look like everybody's grandma.
Right. Yeah, and the thing is, what something Pat was saying is, I think it's struck me that you can't watch one of her TV shows without her laughing. I mean, and not just once or twice, but at numerous places throughout the program. And as he was talking, it just struck me. He said she's so filled with a love of God, with love of truth, love of beauty, that she's such a joyful person. And even with all the pain and suffering that she had in her life, she was such a joyful person, and you can't help but being drawn to that joy. And like you said, in whatever way or particular way it struck you or impacted you, it was joy that you were being drawn to.
Thanks so much, Pat. Appreciate the phone call. We'll head now to Eaton, Ohio. Nancy is listening to EWTN on Sacred Heart Radio. Nancy, thanks for holding. What would you like to say about Mother Angelica?
Well, I almost didn't call because I thought my story would be much like the others, but I'm going to say it anyway. That a few things different certainly, but I was gone from the church about 15 years, and for some reason I started putting her EWTN on, and I would be caught by her, and the days and weeks went by, and finally I knew the truth again, and I could not deny, and I went back about 10 years ago with much fervor, still have fervor, like nothing else. I learned so much that I have forgotten as a child in Catholic school, or was distracted in school, you know how it goes. The other thing I want to mention is she always struck me that she really loved me, and she loved us. She loved us, and that conveyed over the airwaves, I believe, to every single person. And I'm like the others. I only usually watch EWTN and Sacred Heart Radio and 820 and 740 and in the car, and because nothing else fulfills. No other secular program fulfills me like that.
Well, Nancy, thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to give us a call, talking about your experience with Mother Angelica, and support those folks at Sacred Heart Radio that help bring you Mother Angelica and all of this wonderful programming. 1-800-585-9396. We'll try to get to as many as we can by the end of the hour. Carlos is in Columbus, Ohio. He's listening on St. Gabriel Radio. Carlos, you're on the air with John Martignoni.
Hi, how you doing?
All right, Carlos, how are you?
Pretty good. Just wanted to share also a moment that I had in listening to Mother Angelica at our local Catholic radio station when I came back to the faith about 2.5 years ago. I started to really listen to her right around Lent time is when it happened, and was one of my Lenten things to listen to more Catholic radio and just catching her programs. And I watched her on TV one particular time, and even though I was coming back to my faith, I still struggled to embrace the cross, the crucifix of Christ on him, and it really just bothered me to see him on the cross. And on this particular episode, when I turned the TV on, she was talking about St. John, how he was there the entire time with Mary, watching them go through everything, and just being there at the foot of the cross with his mother, and how when Christ came back and he was on the shore, he was the first one to recognize him. And she explained why. And it started to make me think, is he going to recognize me? I'm not embracing this cross. And she just opened my eyes and just exactly what the image of Christ on the cross meant and everything he had done. And it just helped me embrace it, because I really struggled with that. For a long time in my life, I struggled with that image on the cross. I hate to see him suffer that way. But she opened up just such a beautiful way what that suffering meant for us, for me. And it changed my whole life. And I just wanted to kind of share that, because it helped me be a lot more merciful with my family, to be more forgiving. And seeing my father for the first time in 18 years, it really touched my heart, and she meant so much to me in that moment when she said those words. And I just wanted to share that.
Well, thanks so much. Thank you, Carlos. You got me choked up now, Carlos. Nice job out of you, but thanks so much for that phone call and that wonderful story about Mother. 1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. Jose is listening in South Bend, Indiana to EWTN on Redeemer Radio. Jose, you're on the air.
Yes, hi.
Go ahead, Jose.
Yeah, well, the reason I was calling this morning when I was heading to work and I turned on the radio and I heard about, and I had to check it online to make sure that, I was sure what I was hearing. And it was I guess at first it was such a sadness, but at the same time I was thinking, excuse me, especially because of, what a blessing to be taken on the day of the day of the Lord, when we're celebrating the Easter. It was, I know that Mother Angelica will be greatly missed, but at the same time we're going to have a great intercessor, that it will be watching over the whole network that she gave, that she was able to bring, and the other thing that I always admire of her was her way of seeing things, to seeing things in such a simple way. It seems like us as humans, we tend to complicate things, and she always, totally trusting in God and prayer, and to really be able just to just bring God to everything that she was doing, and sharing that with the rest of the people. But again, I say, she's gonna be missed. But the first thing this morning was what a blessing to see God, on this day of Easter.
Thanks so much, Jose. That's a beautiful reflection on the life and legacy of Mother Angelica. Next stop for us is Pickerington, Ohio. Bernadette is listening to EWTN on St. Gabriel Radio. Bernadette, what are your memories of Mother Angelica?
Well, yesterday when I heard the news, of course, I was shocked. And all I could think of, lucky, she got to go to heaven on Easter Sunday. And so I called our daughter in Lancaster, and then between the crying and I thought, okay, I'm going to do something positive. So I got my car, went over to Seton Parish, knelt down, said a whole rosary for her, went to Mass today, and, prayed for her soul. And she'll help us all with all of our problems. We have so much to be grateful for with that dear lady.
Well, Bernadette, we certainly do, and we ask that you and all of our listeners continue to pray for the repose of the soul of Mother Angelica. I know she would appreciate it. She did plenty of suffering on earth, but none of us can have any assurance.
We never know.
That's exactly right, and I'm sure she would appreciate
She would be the first one to ask for prayers.
All of your prayers. Next stop for us is Atlanta, Georgia. David is watching on YouTube in Atlanta. David, you're on the air.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to call in and add my words of honor for Mother Angelica on her passing yesterday. Of course, it's very providential that she passed on Easter, and I think that may even be a faith builder for some people. They can make that connection between her life and then just the vision of her dying on Easter. I had first heard Mother Angelica in about 2006 or 5. I was living in Dallas, Texas at the time. And I was very, very much in the world of flesh and the devil, just living a secular life of ambition, hedonism. And I was sitting in my car. It was a radio network. And this, little voice came on. It was an old program. And I was just fascinated by what she was saying. And, it really struck me. And later on, then I found EWTN on TV. And she looked just like my grandmother, who died just before that. And so really it wasn't so much what she was saying as just that pure human connection of her to my grandmother. And that really what started, me being connected to EWTN and learning about my faith. And from there, it just became more and more wanting to learn about my faith. Not just the connection between her and my grandmother, but my faith that really brought me back. I mean, she was not the only person that brought me back, but she was definitely very instrumental. And as other callers say, I know that her influence is going to be felt. I think she has really done more for the American Catholic Church than church leaders, many church leaders and priests have done.
Thank you so much, David, for that phone call, and continue to stay with us for more on the life of Mother Angelica.